The rain fell like needles, cold and unforgiving, soaking through the cardboard box that Tasha Monroe had carefully positioned against the brick wall of the luxury hotel. Her hands shook as she pulled the thin blanket tighter around her shoulders, but it did nothing to stop the shivering. 7 months pregnant, homeless, and hungry for the third day in a row, she watched through blurred vision as couples in expensive coats hurried past her into the golden warmth of the hotel lobby. Not one person looked down. Not one person stopped. Tasha's stomach cramped with hunger so intense it made her dizzy. The baby inside her kicked weakly, and she whispered an apology into the darkness. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. 3 months ago she had a job, an apartment, and a boyfriend who promised to stand by her. Then the pregnancy test came back positive, and everything fell apart in a matter of weeks. Her boyfriend left. Her landlord evicted her when she couldn't make rent. Her boss fired her for missing work when morning sickness left her too weak to stand. Now she sat in freezing rain outside the Park Grand Hotel, one of the most expensive buildings in the city, with nothing but the clothes on her back and a baby girl growing in her belly who deserved so much better than this. A well-dressed woman walked past, her red heels clicking against the wet pavement. Tasha tried to make eye contact, tried to ask for help, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. The woman pulled her fur coat tighter and walked faster, as if poverty might be contagious. Tasha's vision started to blur. Her body felt both freezing and numb at the same time. She knew these were dangerous signs. Hypothermia. Starvation. Her baby was in danger and there was nothing she could do about it. Inside the hotel, Julian Park stood at the massive window of his penthouse office, looking down at the street below. At 35 years old, he owned 12 luxury hotels across the country, had more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes, and would trade it all for one thing: to see his 5-year-old daughter smile again. "Mr. Park, that's the 4th nanny this month." His assistant Grace Lee stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, looking exhausted. "Mia locked herself in the closet again and won't come out. The nanny is downstairs crying and requesting her payment." Julian closed his eyes and pressed his fingers against his temples. Since his wife Caroline died 2 years ago, Mia had barely spoken. She rejected every nanny, every babysitter, every attempt he made to bring motherly warmth back into her life. The child psychologist said she needed time, stability, and genuine connection. But how could he provide that when he had a business to run and Mia refused to bond with anyone he hired? "Pay her double and send her home," Julian said quietly. "I'll take care of Mia myself tonight." Grace hesitated. "Sir, you have the investor meeting at 7. Cancel it." "But Mr. Park." "Grace, my daughter matters more than any meeting." Julian grabbed his coat. "I'm going home. You can handle things here." He took the private elevator down to the lobby, his mind spinning with worry about Mia. As he pushed through the golden revolving doors into the cold night air, he nearly stepped on something. Someone. A young woman lay crumpled on the ground near the hotel entrance, her body soaked through, her lips blue with cold. She was clearly pregnant, her belly visible even through her wet clothes. Julian's heart jumped into his throat. "Hey, can you hear me?" He dropped to his knees beside her, not caring about his expensive suit getting wet. He pressed his fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse. It was there but weak and slow. People walked past them. Some stared. No one stopped to help. "Someone call an ambulance." Julian shouted, but the pedestrians just kept walking, eyes averted. Rage and disbelief flooded through him. He pulled out his phone and dialed emergency services himself, then carefully lifted the woman into his arms. She was far too light for someone 7 months pregnant. Her skin was like ice. "Stay with me," he said, carrying her through the hotel doors. The doorman jumped to attention. "Call Dr. Rivera immediately. Tell him to get to my private suite now. This is an emergency." The lobby fell silent as Julian Park, billionaire hotel owner, carried a homeless pregnant woman through the marble halls toward his private elevator. Guests stared. Staff whispered. Julian didn't care about any of it. In his arms, Tasha's eyes fluttered open briefly. She saw a face above her, kind and worried, and she tried to speak. "My baby," she whispered. "Your baby is going to be fine," Julian said firmly, stepping into the elevator. "You both are. I promise." As the elevator rose toward his penthouse, Tasha's eyes closed again, but for the first time in months she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Oh, would you keep scrolling past someone dying in the cold, or would you be the one to stop? If this story touched your heart, subscribe to see how one moment of kindness changes everything. Comment below. Would you have helped Tasha? Tasha woke to warmth. Real, genuine warmth that seeped into her bones and made her want to cry with relief. She opened her eyes slowly, confused by the soft white ceiling above her, the gentle beeping of medical equipment nearby, and the feeling of clean sheets against her skin. Where was she? You're awake. Good. A woman's voice, professional and calm, came from her left. Tasha turned her head to see a doctor in a white coat adjusting an 4-line attached to her arm. I'm Dr. Rivera. You're in a private medical suite at the Park Grand Hotel. You've been out for about 6 hours. 6 hours. The rain. The cold. The man who picked her up. My baby? Tasha's hand flew to her stomach, panic rising in her chest. Your baby is fine, Dr. Rivera said with a gentle smile. Strong heartbeat, good movement. But you, young lady, were in serious trouble. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, and early-stage hypothermia. Another hour out there and we might be having a very different conversation. Tears spilled down Tasha's cheeks. Relief, shame, gratitude, all mixed together until she couldn't separate one emotion from another. The man who brought you here has been checking on you every hour, Dr. Rivera continued, making notes on her tablet. He insisted on the best care possible. He's also ordered a full nutritional plan and prenatal vitamins for you. I don't understand, Tasha whispered. Why would he do that? He doesn't even know me. Why don't you ask him yourself? Dr. Rivera gestured toward the door, where Julian Park stood in the doorway, still wearing his expensive suit from the night before, though now it was wrinkled and his tie was gone. He looked exhausted. But when he saw Tasha was awake, something like relief crossed his face. I'll give you two some privacy, Dr. Rivera said, slipping out of the room and closing the door behind her. Julian walked slowly to the chair beside Tasha's bed and sat down. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Thank you, Tasha finally said, her voice rough from crying. You saved my life. You saved my baby's life. You don't need to thank me for basic human decency, Julian replied quietly. I'm just sorry no one else stopped to help sooner. Most people don't see homeless people, Tasha said, looking down at her hands. We become invisible after a while. Julian studied her face. Even exhausted and malnourished, there was a strength in her features, a dignity that poverty couldn't erase. She had beautiful brown eyes, though they carried a sadness that reminded him painfully of his daughter's eyes. What's your name? He asked. Tasha. Tasha Monroe. I'm Julian Park. I own this hotel. I know who you are, Tasha said softly. Everyone knows who you are. Julian nodded, then leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Tasha, I'm going to be very direct with you because we're both dealing with desperate situations, and I don't believe in wasting time. I have a 5-year-old daughter named Mia. Her mother died 2 years ago, and since then, Mia has refused to connect with anyone I hire to help care for her. She barely speaks. She barely eats. She's drowning in grief and I don't know how to save her. Tasha listened, confused about where this was going but too tired to interrupt. I've hired 17 nannies in the past year, Julian continued. Mia has rejected every single one of them. The psychologists say she needs genuine connection, someone who cares about her as a person, not just as a job. But how can I find that when I have to work 60 hours a week to keep my business running? He looked directly into Tasha's eyes. You need a home. You need safety and medical care for yourself and your baby. I need help with my daughter. Not a nanny. Not an employee. A real person who can be there for her, who can give her the motherly love she's been missing. Tasha's heart started beating faster. What are you saying? I'm saying move into my home. Live there. Be a mother figure to Mia. In return, you'll have your own suite of rooms, full medical care throughout your pregnancy and after, food, safety, and a permanent place to stay for as long as you need it. When your baby is born, they'll have everything they need too. No strings attached beyond caring for Mia and being a stable presence in her life. The offer was so enormous, so unexpected that Tasha couldn't process it at first. A home. Safety. Medical care. Everything she'd been praying for during those cold nights on the street. Why would you trust a stranger with your daughter? Tasha asked, searching his face for any hint of deception or ulterior motives. Because you understand loss, Julian said simply. I can see it in your eyes. You've been through something terrible, but you're still fighting to protect your baby. That kind of love, that kind of strength, is exactly what Mia needs to see. And honestly, Tasha, I'm out of options. Conventional solutions aren't working. Maybe what we both need is something unconventional. Tasha's mind raced. There had to be a catch. Men like Julian Park didn't just offer everything to homeless women out of kindness. But as she looked at his face, she saw only exhaustion and genuine worry. This was a father desperate to help his child. What if Mia doesn't like me either? Tasha asked. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But something tells me she will. Julian stood up and pulled a business card from his pocket, setting it on the table beside her bed. That has my personal number. Dr. Rivera says you need at least 3 days of rest and monitored nutrition before you're strong enough to leave. Think about my offer. If you decide yes, call me. If you decide no, I'll still make sure you're placed in a good shelter with prenatal care. Either way, you're not going back to the streets. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back at her. For what it's worth, Tasha, I believe things happen for a reason. Maybe you were outside my hotel last night because we're supposed to help each other. After he left, Tasha lay in the comfortable bed, staring at the ceiling. Her entire body ached, but her mind was clear for the first time in months. She thought about sleeping in the rain, about the fear that gripped her every night on the streets, about the baby growing inside her who deserved a real chance at life. She thought about the sadness in Julian's eyes when he talked about his daughter. Then she thought about the alternative, a shelter if she was lucky. Constantly moving, constantly uncertain, raising her baby in poverty with no support system. Tasha picked up the business card and ran her thumb over the embossed letters of Julian's name. She'd spent 3 months refusing to accept handouts, too proud to ask for help, convinced she could solve everything on her own. That pride had nearly killed her and her baby. Maybe it was time to choose differently. Maybe it was time to accept kindness when it was offered. Maybe it was time to stop being invisible and let someone see her. Tasha reached for the phone on the bedside table. Her hands shook slightly as she dialed Julian's number. He answered on the second ring. Julian Park. Mr. Park, this is Tasha. I've thought about your offer. She took a deep breath. My answer is yes. I accept. And thank you. Thank you for seeing me when no one else would. There was a pause on the other end of the line, then Julian's voice came through, warm with relief. Thank you, Tasha. You have no idea how much this means to me. Rest for the next few days and get your strength back. When you're ready, I'll bring you home and introduce you to Mia. Welcome to the family. When Tasha hung up the phone, she put both hands on her belly and whispered to her baby. We're going to be okay, little one. We're finally going to be okay. For the first time since her world fell apart, Tasha Monroe believed it was true. 3 days later, Tasha stood in front of a mansion that looked like something out of a movie. The Park estate sprawled across what must have been 5 acres, with a main house that rose 3 stories high, painted a soft cream color with blue shutters and a wraparound porch that seemed to go on forever. Gardens stretched out on either side, still green despite the late autumn chill, and a fountain bubbled cheerfully near the circular driveway. This is where you live? Tasha asked, unable to keep the awe out of her voice. Julian, who had picked her up from the hospital himself, smiled slightly. This is home. I know it's a lot to take in. A lot felt like an understatement. Tasha had grown up in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment with her mother and 3 siblings. This place looked like it could hold 50 families comfortably. As they walked up the stone pathway to the front door, it swung open, and a woman in her 50s with warm brown skin and kind eyes appeared, wearing an apron covered in flour. You must be Tasha, the woman said, her voice rich with welcome. I'm Beverly Thompson, the head cook around here. Mr. Park told us all about you. Come in, come in. You look like you could use some real food. Beverly pulled Tasha into a gentle hug before she could respond, and Tasha felt tears prick at her eyes. It had been so long since anyone hugged her like that, with genuine warmth and no expectation of anything in return. Beverly has been with us since Mia was born, Julian explained as they stepped into the foyer. She basically runs the household. Someone has to, Beverly said with a knowing look at Julian. This man would forget to eat if I didn't put food in front of him 3 times a day. The inside of the house was just as impressive as the outside. Hardwood floors gleamed under her feet. A grand staircase curved upward to the 2nd floor. Paintings lined the walls and fresh flowers sat in vases on various tables. But despite the luxury, there was something warm about the space. Photos of a little girl at various ages were displayed on the mantel. Colorful drawings hung on the refrigerator visible through the kitchen doorway. This was a home, not just a house. Let me show you to your rooms, Julian said, gesturing toward the staircase. Then, if you're feeling up to it, I'd like you to meet Mia. Tasha's stomach flipped nervously. Everything depended on whether Mia accepted her. If the little girl rejected her like she'd rejected everyone else, this whole arrangement would fall apart. They climbed to the 2nd floor, then down a wide hallway lined with more family photos. Julian stopped in front of a door and opened it, stepping aside so Tasha could enter first. The suite was beautiful. A large bedroom with a queen-sized bed covered in a soft green comforter, a sitting area with a couch and television, a private bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in, and huge windows that looked out over the gardens. Another door connected to a smaller room that had been set up as a nursery, complete with a crib, changing table and rocking chair. I had the staff prepare it last week, Julian said, watching Tasha's face carefully. If there's anything you need changed or added, just tell Beverly. She'll take care of it. Tasha walked slowly through the rooms, running her hand along the furniture, hardly able to believe this was real. She stopped at the nursery and looked at the crib with its mobile of soft stars hanging above it. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything. Just rest and make yourself at home. Julian checked his watch. It's almost lunchtime. Why don't you get settled and then come downstairs? I'll introduce you to Mia then. After he left, Tasha sat on the edge of the bed and let herself cry. Not from sadness this time, but from overwhelming relief and gratitude. 1 week ago, she'd been sleeping in a cardboard box. Now she sat in a room that was bigger than any apartment she'd ever lived in, safe and warm, with a real future ahead of her baby. She touched her belly gently. See, little one? I told you we'd be okay. An hour later, freshly showered and wearing new clothes that Beverly had somehow already placed in the closet in her size, Tasha made her way downstairs. She followed the sound of voices to a large dining room where a table was set with 3 places. Julian sat at the head of the table, and beside him, in a chair with a booster seat, sat the smallest, saddest-looking child Tasha had ever seen. Mia Park was beautiful, with long black hair pulled into pigtails and her father's dark eyes. She wore a yellow dress with flowers on it and white shoes that dangled above the floor. But her expression was blank, emotionless, as if she'd forgotten how to show feeling. Mia, Julian said gently, this is Tasha. She's going to be staying with us. Remember we talked about this. Mia looked at Tasha with those sad, empty eyes and said nothing. Tasha's heart broke a little. She knew that look. She'd seen it in the mirror often enough during her worst days on the street. This was a child who had lost hope. Hi, Mia, Tasha said softly, sitting down in the chair across from the little girl. It's really nice to meet you. Your dad told me you're 5 years old. That's a great age. Mia stared at her but didn't respond. Beverly came in carrying plates of food, grilled chicken, mashed sweet potatoes, and green beans. She set them down with a meaningful look at Julian, then disappeared back into the kitchen. Let's eat, Julian said, though his voice carried a note of resignation. They ate in uncomfortable silence. Julian made a few attempts at conversation, but Mia ignored him, pushing her food around her plate without eating much. Tasha noticed the little girl kept glancing at her belly, curiosity flickering briefly in those sad eyes. I'm going to have a baby, Tasha said quietly. A little girl. She'll be here in about 2 months. Mia's eyes widened slightly, the first real emotion Tasha had seen from her. Would you like to feel her kick? Tasha asked. She's been moving around a lot today. Mia looked at her father as if asking permission. Julian nodded encouragingly. Slowly, Mia slid down from her chair and walked around the table to Tasha. She was tiny, barely reaching Tasha's shoulder even when Tasha remained seated. Tasha took Mia's small hand gently and placed it on her belly. Right there. Just wait a second. They sat in silence, Mia's hand pressed against Tasha's pregnant belly. Then the baby kicked, a strong thump against Mia's palm. Mia's eyes went huge. Her mouth opened slightly in surprise. And then, for just a brief moment, the corner of her mouth twitched upward. Almost a smile. Julian's breath caught. Tasha saw tears in his eyes. She's strong, Mia whispered. Her first words. She is, Tasha agreed, smiling. Just like you. Mia kept her hand there for another moment, waiting for more kicks. When the baby moved again, Mia's eyes lit up with something that looked almost like joy. She looked up at Tasha. Can I feel her again tomorrow? You can feel her anytime you want, Tasha promised. Mia nodded solemnly, then walked back to her chair and for the first time that meal, picked up her fork and actually ate some of her lunch. Across the table, Julian mouthed 2 words to Tasha. Thank you. Tasha nodded. This was why she was here. Not just to have a place to stay but to help heal a broken little heart. And maybe in the process heal her own broken heart too. After lunch, Julian had to take a business call, so Tasha offered to stay with Mia. The little girl led her to a playroom on the first floor, filled with more toys than any child could possibly need. But Mia walked past all of them to a small table near the window where coloring books and crayons lay scattered. Do you like to color? Tasha asked, sitting down in one of the tiny chairs at the table. Mia nodded and pushed a coloring book toward her. It was a book of flowers and butterflies. They colored together in comfortable silence for a while. Tasha chose a purple crayon and started filling in a butterfly's wings. Mia watched her technique, then carefully selected a blue crayon for her own butterfly. My mommy liked butterflies, Mia said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. Tasha's hand paused mid-stroke. She looked at the little girl, at the grief still visible in her young face. I bet your mommy was wonderful, Tasha said gently. She was. Mia kept coloring, but a single tear rolled down her cheek. She got sick. Daddy said she went to heaven. I'm sorry, sweetheart. That must make you very sad. Mia nodded, more tears falling now. Everyone says they'll stay, but they all leave. Even mommy left. Understanding crashed over Tasha. This was why Mia rejected every nanny. Not because she didn't want connection, but because she was terrified of losing someone again. Tasha set down her crayon and got down on her knees beside Mia's chair. Can I tell you something? Mia looked at her with wet eyes and nodded. I'm not going anywhere, Tasha said firmly. I know you don't know me very well yet and maybe you don't believe me. But I promise you, Mia, I'm not leaving. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. Your daddy gave me and my baby a home when we had nowhere to go. That makes you and your daddy my family now. And family doesn't leave. Mia studied her face for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether to trust these words. Promise? She whispered. I promise. Mia threw her small arms around Tasha's neck and held on tight, crying into her shoulder. Tasha wrapped her arms around the little girl and held her, rocking slightly, letting her cry out the grief and fear she'd been holding inside for 2 years. It's okay, Tasha murmured. I've got you. You're safe. Everything's going to be okay. From the doorway, Julian stood watching, his own face wet with tears. He'd heard everything. And for the first time since Caroline died, he felt like his daughter might actually heal. Maybe they all would. The first 2 weeks passed in a gentle rhythm. Tasha woke each morning to Beverly's cooking smells drifting up from the kitchen. She'd dress in the comfortable clothes that had mysteriously appeared in her closet, all in her size, all in colors she loved, then make her way downstairs to find Mia already awake and waiting for her at the breakfast table. Can I feel the baby? Became Mia's morning greeting, and Tasha always said yes, guiding the little girl's hand to wherever the baby was kicking that day. Julian would join them for breakfast before heading to work, and Tasha noticed that Mia now talked to him too, telling him about her dreams or asking him questions about his day. The silence that had filled this house for 2 years was slowly being replaced with conversation and sometimes even laughter. On a bright Thursday morning, Tasha found Mia in the kitchen with Beverly, both of them covered in flour. We're making cookies, Mia announced proudly. Want to help? I would love to, Tasha said, washing her hands at the sink. Beverly handed her an apron with a knowing smile. Chocolate chip cookies were Miss Caroline's favorite. Mia asked if we could make them today. Tasha's heart squeezed. This was progress, Mia talking about her mother without dissolving into tears. They spent the morning measuring flour, cracking eggs, and stirring chocolate chips into the dough. Mia stood on a stool beside Tasha, carefully dropping spoonfuls of dough onto the baking sheet, her tongue sticking out in concentration. You're doing a great job, Tasha told her. These are going to be delicious. Mommy used to let me lick the spoon, Mia said, glancing at Tasha hopefully. Well, then we definitely have to keep that tradition going, Tasha said, handing her a spoon with dough on it. Mia's face lit up with pure joy, and she licked the spoon enthusiastically, getting chocolate on her nose. Beverly laughed. You look just like you did when you were 3 years old, Miss Mia. Your mama would take 100 pictures of you covered in cookie dough. I miss her, Mia said, but her voice was steady, not broken. I know you do, honey, Beverly said gently. And that's okay. We all miss her. But Tasha's here now, Mia said, looking up at Tasha with complete trust. And the baby will be here soon. So our family is growing again. Tasha had to turn away to wipe her eyes. 2 weeks ago, this child wouldn't speak. Now she was talking about family and looking forward to the future. When the cookies came out of the oven, golden and perfect, Mia insisted they save some for her daddy. They arranged 6 cookies on a special plate, and that evening when Julian came home, Mia ran to him with the plate held high. We made mommy's cookies, she said proudly. Try one. Julian picked her up, plate and all, and took a bite. His eyes closed and Tasha saw emotion cross his face. Perfect, he said. Just like I remember. That night, after Mia was tucked into bed, Julian found Tasha in the library, a room she'd discovered filled with books from floor to ceiling. She was curled up in one of the large armchairs, reading a pregnancy book Beverly had given her. "Can I come in?" Julian asked from the doorway. "Of course. It's your house." "It's your home too," he corrected, settling into the chair across from her. "I wanted to thank you, Tasha. What you're doing for Mia, it's beyond anything I could have hoped for." "She's an amazing kid," Tasha said. "She just needed someone to be patient with her grief." The nannies were patient. They were paid to be patient. That's different. Tasha closed her book. Mia needed someone who genuinely cares about her, not because it's a job, but because she's worth caring about. Julian leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "How are you feeling? Is the baby okay?" "We're both good. Your Dr. Rivera says everything is progressing perfectly. The baby is healthy and growing right on schedule." "Good. That's good." Julian paused, seeming to struggle with something. "Tasha, I need you to understand something. This arrangement, it's not charity. You're giving me and Mia something we desperately needed. You're giving us hope again. So please, anything you need, don't hesitate to ask. You're not a burden. You're family." The word family settled over Tasha like a warm blanket. She'd lost her own family years ago. Her mother died when she was 22. Her siblings had scattered across the country, caught up in their own lives. The boyfriend who abandoned her had been the closest thing she had to family in years. Now this man, this billionaire who could have walked past her on the street like everyone else, was calling her family. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what that means to me." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Tasha found herself studying Julian's face. He was handsome, there was no denying that, with strong features and kind eyes. But it was more than that. There was a gentleness to him, a real goodness that had nothing to do with money or status. "Can I ask you something?" Tasha said. "Anything. Why did you really stop that night? You could have called an ambulance and walked away. Why did you carry me inside yourself?" Julian was quiet for a long moment. "Because 2 years ago I watched my wife die in a hospital, and there was nothing I could do to save her. I had all the money in the world, the best doctors, everything, but I couldn't save Caroline. That night when I saw you lying there, I thought, here's someone I can save. Here's a life I can protect. Maybe I couldn't save my wife, but I could save you and your baby. I had to try." Tasha's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry about your wife." "Thank you. She was an incredible person. Kind, funny, patient with me when I got too caught up in work. Mia is exactly like her." "She talks about her mother now," Tasha said. "That's healthy. She should remember Caroline." "She never talked about her before you came," Julian said. "The psychologist said it was her way of protecting herself from the pain. But now she's healing. Because of you." "We're healing each other," Tasha said softly. "I was pretty broken too." Their eyes met, and something passed between them, an understanding, a connection that went beyond the practical arrangement they'd made. Julian stood up. "I should let you rest. But Tasha, thank you. For everything." After he left, Tasha sat in the quiet library, her hands on her belly, and thought about how strange and wonderful life could be. A month ago she had nothing. Now she had a home, a little girl who needed her, and a feeling growing in her chest that she was afraid to name. She was starting to care about Julian Park as more than just the man who saved her. And that was a complication she hadn't planned for. The next morning, Tasha woke to find Mia already in her room, sitting on the floor of the nursery, arranging stuffed animals in the crib. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" Tasha asked, smiling at the sight. "Getting ready for the baby," Mia said seriously. "She'll want toys when she gets here." "That's very thoughtful of you." Mia looked up at her. "What's her name going to be?" Tasha sat down on the floor beside her. "I don't know yet. Do you have any ideas?" Mia thought for a moment. "Something pretty? Something that means something good." "Like what?" "Like hope," Mia said. "Because that's what babies are. Hope for good things coming." Tasha's breath caught. Out of the mouths of children came the truest wisdom. Hope. That was exactly what this baby represented. Hope after despair. Light after darkness. A future after believing she had none. "Hope," Tasha repeated. "I love that name." "Really?" Mia's face lit up. "Really? Thank you, Mia. That's perfect." Mia threw her arms around Tasha's neck. "I'm going to be the best big sister ever." "I know you are," Tasha said, holding her close. "Hope is lucky to have you." That afternoon, Beverly took them into town for shopping. Mia held Tasha's hand the entire time, pointing out baby clothes she liked and insisting they buy a pink teddy bear, because every baby needs a teddy bear. People stared at them, this obviously pregnant African-American woman and the Asian little girl calling her by name so affectionately. Tasha saw the questions in their eyes, but she didn't care. Let them wonder. This was her family now, unconventional as it might be. At the park on the way home, Mia begged to play on the swings. Tasha pushed her gently, listening to the little girl's laughter ring out across the playground. Other mothers sat on benches nearby, watching their own children play. One woman, kind-faced and friendly, came over to Tasha. "Your daughter is beautiful. How old is she?" Tasha started to correct her, to explain the situation, but then she looked at Mia, swinging high and free and happy, and she realized something. "She's 5, Tasha said simply. "And thank you." Because in every way that mattered, Mia was becoming her daughter. Not by blood but by choice. By love. By the commitment she made that day in the playroom when she promised not to leave. That night at dinner, Mia made an announcement. "The baby's name is Hope," she told her father proudly. "I helped pick it." Julian looked at Tasha with raised eyebrows and Tasha nodded. "Hope Monroe Park," Tasha said. "If that's okay with you." Julian's eyes went suspiciously bright. "Park? This is her home. You're providing for her. It seems right." Julian had to clear his throat twice before he could speak. "I'd be honored." Under the table, Mia grabbed Tasha's hand and squeezed it tight. Tasha squeezed back, marveling at how much her life had changed in 2 short weeks. She'd come here broken, homeless, and hopeless. Now she sat at a table with people who cared about her, making plans for a future that suddenly looked bright and full of possibility. Sometimes miracles happen when you least expected them. Sometimes all you had to do was be brave enough to accept them. Winter arrived with soft snow that blanketed the estate in white. Tasha, now 8 months pregnant, spent her mornings watching Mia build snowmen with Roberto Santos, the groundskeeper. Roberto was a kind man in his 60s who had worked for the Park family for 15 years. He treated Mia like his own granddaughter and had welcomed Tasha with the same warmth Beverly showed. "Miss Tasha, you should not be standing so long," Roberto called out, noticing her at the window. "Doctor's orders, yes?" "I'm just watching," Tasha called back, but she did sit down in the comfortable chair Julian had moved near the window specifically for her. Mia waved at her from the yard, her red coat bright against the snow. She changed so much in the past month. She laughed now. She played. She asked questions about everything and told long, winding stories about her day. The sad, silent child had transformed into a happy, talkative 5-year-old. That evening, after Mia was in bed, Tasha found herself drawn to the study where Julian often worked late. She knocked softly on the half-open door. "Come in," Julian called, looking up from his laptop. When he saw it was Tasha, his face softened. "Can't sleep?" "Hope is doing gymnastics in there," Tasha said, rubbing her belly with a smile. "I thought I'd come find some company since I'm awake anyway." "I'm glad you did." Julian closed his laptop and gestured to the sofa across from his desk. "Sit down. Can I get you anything?" "Water?" "I'm okay." Tasha settled onto the sofa. "You work too much, you know," says the woman who spends all day caring for my daughter and won't let Beverly do half the things she offers to help with. Tasha smiled. "That's different. I want to take care of Mia. And I want to build a secure future for both of you," Julian said. "For all of you. You, Mia, and Hope." There was something in the way he said it, something that made Tasha's heart beat a little faster. Over the past month, she'd noticed small things. The way Julian's eyes followed her when she left a room. How he always made sure she had everything she needed before he left for work. The gentle way he touched her shoulder when he passed her in the hallway. She'd noticed because she felt the same pull toward him. "Julian," Tasha said carefully, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you think you'll ever marry again? I mean, after Caroline." Julian leaned back in his chair, considering the question. "A year ago I would have said no. I thought what Caroline and I had was once in a lifetime. I thought I'd had my chance at love and that was it. And now I think maybe life gives us second chances sometimes. If we're brave enough to take them." He looked directly at her. "What about you? Do you think you'll give love another try after what happened with your baby's father?" Tasha's hand went to her belly protectively. She rarely talked about Marcus, the man who abandoned her when she needed him most. "What happened with Marcus taught me something important. Love isn't about pretty words or promises. It's about showing up. It's about staying when things get hard. It's about actions, not just feelings." "That's very wise. I learned it the hard way." Tasha paused. "But yes, I think I could love again. If I found someone who understood what real love actually means. The air between them felt charged with something unspoken. Julian stood up and moved to sit on the sofa beside her, careful to leave respectful space between them. Tasha, these past weeks with you here, they've changed everything. Not just for Mia, though watching her heal has been incredible. But for me too. I look forward to coming home now. I look forward to dinner conversations and hearing about your day and watching you read to Mia before bed. I look forward to seeing you. Tasha's breath caught. Julian. I'm not saying this to pressure you or make you uncomfortable. I know our arrangement is practical and you're here because of Mia. But I need you to know that somewhere along the way, you became more than just someone helping me with my daughter. You became someone I care about. Someone important to me. Tasha's heart was racing. She tried so hard not to let herself feel these things, not to hope for more than what they'd agreed to. But the truth was, she'd been falling for Julian Park since the moment he carried her out of the rain. I care about you too, she admitted softly. More than I probably should. Why shouldn't you? Because this was supposed to be simple. A practical arrangement. I was homeless, you needed help with Mia, and we made a deal. But now it feels complicated. Life is complicated, Julian said. But that doesn't mean it's bad. Sometimes complicated is just another word for real. He reached over and took her hand gently. His skin was warm against hers. I'm not asking for anything to change right now, Julian said. I just needed you to know how I feel. Whatever happens between us, it will be because we both want it, not because you feel obligated or because of our arrangement. You'll always have a home here, Tasha. Always. Regardless of anything else. Tears spilled down Tasha's cheeks. How are you this good? How are you real? I'm not that good. I'm just a man who knows a blessing when he sees one. Julian squeezed her hand. You walked into my life when I'd lost hope. You brought light back into this house. You gave my daughter her smile back. How could I not fall for you? Tasha wanted to kiss him. The urge was so strong it almost overwhelmed her. But she was 8 months pregnant, emotionally vulnerable, and still figuring out how to trust again. This needed to happen slowly, carefully. As if reading her mind, Julian lifted her hand and kissed it gently. We have time. All the time you need. Thank you, Tasha whispered. They sat together on the sofa, hands intertwined, talking late into the night. Julian told her about his childhood growing up poor in a small apartment with immigrant parents who worked 3 jobs between them to make ends meet. He told her about building his business from nothing, about his first small hotel that barely stayed afloat, about meeting Caroline at a charity fundraiser and knowing within 5 minutes that he'd marry her. Tasha told him about losing her mother to cancer when she was just 22, about her siblings drifting away to follow their own dreams, about meeting Marcus and believing he was her new family. She told him about the pregnancy test, the abandonment, the rapid spiral into homelessness that happened so fast she couldn't stop it. I was so ashamed, Tasha said. I kept thinking I should be able to fix it myself. I should be able to figure something out. Accepting help felt like failure. Pride almost killed you, Julian said gently. And your baby. I know. That night in the rain when I collapsed, part of me was actually relieved. I was so tired of fighting alone. You never have to fight alone again. The clock on the mantel chimed midnight. Tasha stood up slowly, her hand on her lower back. I should let you get back to work. Work can wait. Julian stood too. Let me walk you to your room. They walked slowly up the grand staircase, Julian's hand hovering near her elbow in case she needed support. At her door they paused. Good night, Julian. Good night, Tasha. She started to go inside, then turned back. Julian? I'm glad you stopped that night. I'm glad you didn't just walk past me. I'm glad too. More than you know. After her door closed, Julian stood in the hallway for a long moment, his heart full of feelings he'd thought he'd never experience again. He'd loved Caroline completely, and losing her had nearly destroyed him. He never expected to fall in love a second time. But love didn't ask permission. It just arrived, unexpected and perfect, in the form of a woman who'd lost everything and still had the strength to care for his broken daughter. Julian walked back to his study, but instead of working he pulled out his phone and called his lawyer. Robert, it's Julian Park. Sorry for calling so late, but I need you to draw up some papers. I want to establish a trust fund. For 2 beneficiaries, Mia Park and Hope Monroe Park. Whatever happened between him and Tasha, whatever shape their relationship took, he was going to make sure both girls were taken care of. Always. Because that's what you did for family. And they were his family now, all 3 of them. Snow fell steadily outside as December arrived, transforming the estate into something magical. Mia insisted they needed to decorate for Christmas, something the Park household hadn't done properly since Caroline died. Julian had simply let the staff put up minimal decorations the past 2 years, unable to face the memories. But this year was different. "We need a tree," Mia announced at breakfast one Saturday morning. "A really big one." Tasha looked at Julian, unsure. "Is that okay?" Julian smiled, and Tasha noticed it reached his eyes now, a real smile instead of the sad attempts from when she first arrived. "I think it's a great idea. We should all go pick one out together." They drove to a Christmas tree farm an hour away, the 4 of them. Julian, Mia, Tasha, and Roberto, who'd been enlisted to help transport whatever tree they chose. The air smelled like pine and snow, and Christmas music played from speakers scattered throughout the farm. Mia ran ahead, examining every tree with serious concentration. Too small. Too skinny. Too short. "She has high standards," Roberto said with a laugh. "Just like her father," Tasha teased, and Julian bumped her shoulder gently with his. The casual touch sent warmth through Tasha's entire body. Since their conversation in the study 2 weeks ago, there had been more of these small touches. A hand on her back as they walked. Fingers brushing when they both reached for something at the same time. Julian sitting closer to her on the sofa during Mia's bedtime stories. Nothing inappropriate, nothing rushed. Just a gentle building of connection that made Tasha's heart race every time. "This one," Mia shouted from the top of a small hill. "Come see." They climbed up to find her standing in front of a massive Douglas fir that had to be at least 12 feet tall. "Mia, that's huge," Julian said. "It's perfect," Mia insisted. "It's the most beautiful tree here." Julian looked at Tasha, who was trying not to laugh. "What do you think?" "I think Mia has excellent taste." "That's all I need to hear," Julian said. He signaled to one of the farm workers. "We'll take this one." Getting the tree into the house took Roberto and 2 of the farm workers. They set it up in the main living room where it nearly touched the ceiling. The entire room smelled like fresh pine. "Now we decorate," Mia said, clapping her hands. Beverly appeared with boxes of ornaments that had been stored in the attic. As they opened them, Tasha saw Julian's face grow sad. These were Caroline's decorations, memories of Christmases past. Mia pulled out a handmade ornament, clearly created by a child's hands. "I made this with Mommy when I was 3. Julian knelt down beside his daughter. "I remember. You were so proud of it." "Can we hang it on the tree?" Mia asked. Mommy would want to be part of Christmas. Julian's eyes were wet, but he was smiling. "She absolutely would. Let's hang it right in front where everyone can see it." They spent the afternoon decorating, and Tasha was moved by how they incorporated Caroline's memory into the joy of the present. Mia told stories about her mother as they hung ornaments. Julian shared memories that made them all laugh. No one was trying to forget Caroline. They were honoring her while still moving forward. "Tasha, you should put the star on top," Mia said, holding up the golden star that went at the tree's peak. "Oh, I think your dad should do that. It's tradition." "New tradition," Mia insisted. "You're part of our family now." Julian brought over a step stool. "She's right. Please." Tasha climbed carefully up the stool, her pregnant belly making it a bit awkward. Julian stood close behind her, his hands hovering near her waist in case she needed support. She could feel the warmth of him, smell his cologne. She placed the star on the highest branch, and Julian reached up to help her secure it. For a moment, they were both reaching upward together, their hands touching, their bodies close. "Got it," Julian said quietly, and Tasha could hear something in his voice that made her pulse quicken. They stepped back and Roberto plugged in the lights. The tree blazed to life, beautiful and bright, filling the room with warm light. "It's the best tree ever," Mia breathed. That night, after Mia was asleep, Tasha couldn't settle down. The baby was active and her back ached from all the decorating. She made her way to the kitchen for some water and found Julian already there making hot chocolate. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Hope is practicing her martial arts routine in there." Julian smiled. "Want some hot chocolate? It's Caroline's recipe. She always made it this time of year." "I'd love some." They sat at the kitchen island, sipping hot chocolate and watching snow fall outside the large window. The house was quiet around them, peaceful. "Thank you for today," Julian said. "For helping make Christmas special again. For helping Mia remember her mother in a healthy way. Caroline will always be part of this family," Tasha said. "I would never try to replace her." "You're not replacing her. You're healing us. There's a difference." Julian set down his mug. "Tasha, I need to tell you something." Tasha's heart started beating faster. Okay. When I asked you to move in here, I genuinely thought this was just about helping Mia. I thought I was doing something good for my daughter while helping someone in need. But it became more than that so quickly. You became more than that. Julian. Let me finish. He reached over and took her hand. I'm in love with you, Tasha. Completely, entirely in love with you. I know it's fast. I know our situation is complicated. But I can't keep pretending what I feel is anything less than love. Tasha's eyes filled with tears. She'd known this was coming, felt it building between them for weeks, but hearing the words out loud still made her heart sore. I love you too, she whispered. I tried not to. I tried to keep this practical and simple. But Julian, you're the kindest, most genuine person I've ever met. How could I not fall in love with you? Julian stood up and came around the island to stand in front of her. He cupped her face gently in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. Can I kiss you? He asked softly. Please. He leaned down and kissed her, gentle and sweet and perfect. Tasha felt it all the way to her toes, this kiss that tasted like hot chocolate and promises and new beginnings. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying and smiling at the same time. I don't want this to just be about me needing help or you providing a home, Tasha said. I want this to be real. It is real, Julian assured her. The most real thing I've felt since Caroline died. You're not here because I'm doing you a favor. You're here because you belong here. With me. With Mia. With us. They kissed again, longer this time, and Tasha felt hope kick hard against her belly. They both laughed. I think someone approves, Julian said, placing his hand on Tasha's belly. Hope kicked again right under his palm and his face filled with wonder. She's strong. Just like her big sister, Tasha said. Julian pulled Tasha into his arms, careful of her belly, and held her close. She rested her head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat, steady and sure. What happens now? Tasha asked. Now we take it one day at a time. We keep caring for Mia together. We prepare for Hope's arrival. We build this family we're creating. He pulled back to look at her. And we love each other. If that's okay with you. That's more than okay. They stood in the quiet kitchen, holding each other, both of them thinking about how strange and beautiful life could be. How loss could lead to finding something unexpected. How the worst moments could open doors to the best ones. Tasha had lost everything and ended up finding what she needed most. A home, a family, and love that didn't come with conditions or demands. Just simple, genuine love offered freely. And Julian, who thought he'd never love again after Caroline, discovered his heart was bigger than he knew. Big enough to honor his past while embracing his future. Big enough to love again without guilt or fear. Upstairs, in her yellow bedroom with the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, Mia slept peacefully, dreaming of Christmas and baby sisters and the woman who kept her promise to stay. The family was healing. Growing. Becoming something beautiful. And it all started because one man chose to stop and help someone everyone else walked past. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. One moment of kindness. One choice to see someone who's been made invisible. One decision to love when it would be easier to walk away. Tasha woke at 3 a.m. to a sharp pain across her belly. She lay still for a moment, wondering if it was just another false alarm like the one she'd had 2 weeks ago. But then another contraction came, stronger this time, and she knew. It was time. She reached for her phone on the nightstand and called Julian's number. He answered on the first ring, his voice alert despite the early hour. Tasha? Are you okay? The baby's coming. I think we need to go to the hospital. She heard movement, Julian already getting out of bed. I'll be right there. Don't move. 2 minutes later, he was at her door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair messy from sleep but his eyes sharp with focus. How far apart are the contractions? About 8 minutes. Okay, good. We have time. He helped her stand up slowly. I already called Dr. Rivera. She's meeting us at the hospital. Mia, Tasha said, another contraction making her pause and breathe through it. We can't leave her alone. Beverly is already on her way. She'll stay with Mia until my sister gets here in the morning. Julian grabbed the hospital bag they'd packed weeks ago. Everything is taken care of. You just focus on breathing. They made it downstairs just as Beverly came through the front door, still putting on her coat. You go on, Beverly said, shooing them toward the garage. I've got Miss Mia. You bring that beautiful baby into the world. The drive to the hospital was quick, Julian driving carefully but efficiently through the empty pre-dawn streets. He kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other holding Tasha's, squeezing gently whenever a contraction hit. You're doing great, he murmured. So great. This hurts more than I expected, Tasha admitted through gritted teeth. I know. But soon you'll get to meet Hope. Keep thinking about that. At the hospital, Julian's status meant they were ushered immediately into a private birthing suite. Dr. Rivera arrived within minutes, calm and professional. Let's see how far along you are, she said after examining Tasha. Oh, you're moving fast. Already 6 centimeters. This baby wants to meet you today. The next few hours were a blur of pain and breathing exercises and Julian's steady presence beside her. He never left, not even when the contractions got so intense that Tasha squeezed his hand hard enough to leave marks. I can't do this, Tasha gasped during a particularly brutal contraction. You can, Julian said firmly. You're the strongest person I know. You survived homelessness while pregnant. You can absolutely do this. He's right, Dr. Rivera said. You're almost there, Tasha. Just a little longer. At 7:42 in the morning as the sun rose over the city, Hope Monroe Park came into the world with a loud, healthy cry. Dr. Rivera placed her on Tasha's chest, and Tasha burst into tears at the sight of her daughter, red and wrinkled and absolutely perfect. She's beautiful, Julian whispered, his own face wet with tears. Just like her mother. Hope had a cap of dark curly hair and deep brown eyes that looked up at Tasha with what seemed like recognition. Tasha counted her tiny fingers and toes, marveling at the miracle of this small person she'd carried for 9 months. Welcome to the world, baby girl, Tasha whispered, kissing Hope's forehead. We've been waiting for you. Julian stood beside the bed, looking down at both of them with an expression of pure love. When Dr. Rivera asked if he wanted to cut the umbilical cord, he looked at Tasha for permission. You should, Tasha said. You're her father in every way that matters. Julian's hands shook slightly as he cut the cord, officially separating Hope from Tasha and starting her independent life. Then he leaned down and kissed Tasha gently. Thank you, he said, for letting me be here. For letting me be part of this. There's nowhere else you should be. After the nurses took Hope to be weighed and measured, Julian called home to share the news. He put the phone on speaker so Tasha could hear. Did the baby come? Mia's excited voice filled the room. She did, Julian said, smiling. You have a little sister. Her name is Hope, she weighs 7 pounds and 3 ounces and she's perfect. Can I come see her? Later today after you've had breakfast and gotten dressed. Aunt Helen is going to bring you to the hospital. Is Tasha okay? Tasha felt her heart squeeze. I'm great, sweetheart. I can't wait for you to meet your little sister. I love you, Tasha, Mia said, and it was the first time she'd said those words. I love you too, Mia. So much. After they hung up, Julian settled into the chair beside Tasha's bed. A nurse brought Hope back, now cleaned and wrapped in a soft pink blanket, and placed her in Tasha's arms. She's really here, Tasha said, unable to stop staring at her daughter. After everything, she's really here and she's healthy and perfect. You did that, Julian said. You protected her through impossible circumstances. You're an incredible mother. I had help. A lot of help. Tasha looked at him. Julian, I need to tell you something. Anything. When I was living on the streets, I used to pray. I'd given up on a lot of things, but I still prayed. And I'd ask for a miracle, for something to change, for a way out. But I never imagined the miracle would look like you. I never imagined someone would care enough to actually help instead of just walking past. Julian reached over and brushed a curl away from her face. You gave me a miracle too. You gave me my daughter back. You brought joy into my house again. You taught me that it's okay to love after loss. I do love you, Tasha said. In case that wasn't clear. It's clear. Julian smiled. And I love you. Both of you. All 3 of you, counting Mia. Hope made a small noise, her tiny hand curling around Tasha's finger. They both looked down at her, this perfect blend of vulnerability and possibility. What kind of life do you think she'll have? Tasha wondered aloud. A beautiful one, Julian said with certainty. Full of love and opportunity and family. Everything you wanted for her. Later that afternoon, Mia arrived with Julian's sister Helen. She burst into the hospital room like a small tornado, stopping short when she saw the baby in Tasha's arms. She's so tiny, Mia whispered, suddenly shy. Come here, Tasha said, patting the bed beside her. Come meet your sister. Mia climbed carefully onto the bed and peered down at Hope's face. The baby's eyes were open, looking around at this strange new world. Hi, Hope, Mia said softly. I'm your big sister, Mia. I'm going to teach you everything. How to color and read and build snowmen and bake cookies. I'm going to protect you and play with you and love you forever. Hope seemed to look right at Mia, and her tiny hand moved as if reaching for her. She knows me, Mia breathed. Daddy, she knows me. Of course she does, Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. You've been talking to her for months. Mia very gently touched Hope's hand, and the baby's fingers curled around one of hers. The look of wonder on Mia's face was something Tasha would remember forever. I'm a big sister, Mia said. A real big sister. The best big sister, Tasha agreed. They spent the rest of the afternoon as a family, passing Hope around carefully, taking pictures, and marveling at this new person who had joined their lives. Beverly and Roberto came by with flowers and homemade food. Dr. Rivera stopped in to check on Tasha and declare both mother and baby healthy. As evening fell and the hospital grew quiet, Julian sent Mia home with his sister so she could get a proper dinner and bedtime. He stayed with Tasha, pulling the uncomfortable hospital chair as close to her bed as possible. You don't have to stay, Tasha said, though she hoped he would. There's nowhere else I want to be. Hope slept in the bassinet beside the bed, making little snuffling noises that they both found adorable. Tasha was exhausted but too wired to sleep, running on adrenaline and joy. Julian, she said quietly, do you ever think about what our life is going to look like? Long term, I mean. All the time. And what do you see? Julian took her hand. I see you and me raising these two girls together. I see birthday parties and school plays and teenage drama. I see Christmases and summer vacations and all the normal, beautiful, chaotic things that families do. I see us growing old together, watching our girls grow up and maybe giving us grandchildren someday. That sounds perfect, Tasha whispered. It does, doesn't it? Julian kissed her hand. Tasha, I don't want to rush you or pressure you, especially not right now when you just gave birth. But I need you to know that I'm serious about this. About us. About building a real future together. I know you are. I'm serious about it too. Good. Because when you're ready, when the time is right, I'm going to ask you to marry me. For real. Not out of obligation or arrangement, but because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Tasha's eyes filled with happy tears. When you do ask, my answer will be yes. They smiled at each other, understanding passing between them without need for more words. This was their family now. This was their future. And it was everything neither of them had dared to hope for. In the bassinet, Hope made a small sound. Tasha reached over and gently rocked the bassinet with one hand, her other hand still held securely in Julian's. Welcome to the family, Hope, Julian whispered. You have no idea how loved you already are. And as the city lights twinkled outside the hospital window, this new family of four sat together in peaceful contentment, proof that sometimes the worst circumstances can lead to the most beautiful beginnings. All it takes is one person willing to help. One person willing to stay. One person willing to love. The first month with Hope home was a blur of late-night feedings, diaper changes, and adjusting to life with a newborn. Tasha had moved into the master suite with Julian, officially and completely. It just made sense, he'd said, and Tasha agreed. They were a family. They should be together. Mia was a devoted big sister, always wanting to help. She'd hold Hope's bottle, fetch clean diapers, and sing lullabies in her sweet 5-year-old voice. Watching her with the baby made Tasha's heart full to bursting. One February evening, after both girls were finally asleep, Tasha found Julian in the living room, staring at the dying embers in the fireplace. Penny for your thoughts, she said, settling onto the couch beside him. Julian pulled her close against his side. I was just thinking about how different everything is now. A year ago, I was basically sleepwalking through life. Working all the time, watching Mia fade away, feeling like I'd failed as a father. You didn't fail. I was failing, Julian corrected gently. I didn't know how to reach her. But then you came along and everything changed. You changed everything, Tasha. Tasha rested her head on his shoulder. We changed each other. I was giving up when you found me. I'd stopped believing good things could happen. You proved me wrong. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the house quiet around them. Then Julian shifted, reaching into his pocket. I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment, he said. But I'm starting to think there's no such thing as a perfect moment. There's just now and us and the life we're building together. He pulled out a small velvet box. Tasha's breath caught. Julian. Let me say this first, Julian said, his voice steady but emotional. I know we started this in an unconventional way. I know we came together out of mutual need, not romance. But somewhere along the way, need became want, and want became love, and love became this certainty that you're the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. He opened the box, revealing a beautiful ring with a single diamond that caught the firelight. Tasha Monroe, will you marry me? Not because we have an arrangement, not because it's practical, but because I love you completely and I want you to be my wife. Tasha was crying now, happy tears streaming down her face. Yes. Yes, Julian, I'll marry you. Julian slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply. When they broke apart, both of them were smiling and crying at the same time. I love you, Tasha said. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Why does it scare you? Because I have so much to lose now. You, Mia, hope this life we've built. What if something happens? What if I lose it all again? Julian cupped her face in his hands, making sure she was looking directly at him. Life doesn't come with guarantees. I learned that when I lost Caroline. But I also learned that letting fear stop you from loving is worse than the risk of loss. We have right now, Tasha. We have today and tomorrow and hopefully thousands of days after that. That's all anyone gets. You're right. I know you're right. Besides, Julian said with a small smile, you promised Mia you wouldn't leave. And I've learned that you always keep your promises. Tasha laughed through her tears. I did promise her that, didn't I? You did. So you're stuck with us now. They kissed again, sealing the promise with joy and hope and the kind of love that grows slowly and roots deeply. When they finally pulled apart, Tasha looked down at the ring on her finger, still hardly believing this was real. When should we tell Mia? She asked. How about tomorrow morning? We can tell her together. But they didn't have to wait until morning. A small voice came from the doorway. Tell me what? They both turned to see Mia standing there in her yellow pajamas with stars on them, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Sweetheart, what are you doing awake? Julian asked. I heard voices. I came to check. Mia walked over to the couch and Tasha pulled her up to sit between them. Are you guys okay? We're better than okay, Tasha said, exchanging a look with Julian. Your dad just asked me something very important. What did he ask? He asked me to marry him, Tasha said softly. And I said yes. Mia's eyes went wide. Then her face broke into the biggest smile Tasha had ever seen on her. Really? You're going to be married? Like for real married? For real married, Julian confirmed. Does that mean Tasha will be my mom? Like my actual mom? Tasha's heart clenched. If that's okay with you. I would never try to replace your first mom. She'll always be your mom too. I know, Mia said seriously. I have mommy in heaven and you here. That means I have two moms. I'm lucky. She threw her arms around Tasha's neck and held on tight. I love you so much. I'm so happy you're staying forever. Me too, baby girl. Me too. Julian wrapped his arms around both of them and they sat there as a family holding each other close. Mia eventually fell asleep between them, her head on Tasha's shoulder, completely content. I guess we told her, Julian whispered. I guess we did, Tasha whispered back, looking down at Mia's peaceful face. And she's happy. Of course she is. She gets everything she wanted. A mom, a baby sister, and a family that's whole again. They carried Mia back to bed together, tucking her in carefully. As they walked back to their room, Julian took Tasha's hand. Have you thought about when you want to get married? I don't need anything big, Tasha said. Just something small and meaningful. With the people we love. That sounds perfect to me. Over the next few months, they planned a simple ceremony in the estate gardens. Beverly insisted on handling all the food. Roberto spent weeks making sure the gardens were perfect, planting extra flowers and building a beautiful arbor for them to stand under. Mia appointed herself the flower girl and took her duties very seriously, practicing walking slowly and sprinkling imaginary petals for weeks beforehand. Hope, now 4 months old, would be carried down the aisle by Beverly, wearing a white dress that made her look like a tiny angel. Julian's sister Helen helped Tasha find the perfect dress, something simple and elegant in cream-colored silk that accommodated her post-pregnancy body beautifully. Mia insisted Tasha needed flowers in her hair, so they added fresh blooms to complement the dress. The night before the wedding, Tasha couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of the master bedroom, looking out at the gardens where she'd be married tomorrow, and marveled at how far she'd come. 9 months ago she'd been homeless and hopeless, convinced her life was over. Now she stood in a beautiful home, about to marry an incredible man, with 2 daughters who called her mom and a future so bright it almost hurt to look at. Can't sleep? Julian's voice came from behind her, and she felt his arms wrap around her waist. Just thinking. About what? About miracles, Tasha said, leaning back against him. About how sometimes the worst moments lead to the best ones. About how glad I am that you didn't walk past me that night. I'll never walk past someone who needs help, Julian said. You taught me that the way we treat people when they're at their lowest says everything about who we are. You already knew that. You just reminded yourself. They stood together, looking out at the moonlit gardens, both of them thinking about the journey that brought them here. Are you nervous about tomorrow? Julian asked. Not even a little bit, Tasha said. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Good. Because I plan to spend the rest of my life making you happy. You already do. The next morning dawned clear and beautiful, the kind of perfect spring day that felt like a gift. Tasha woke early, fed Hope, and then let herself be swept up in the joy of preparation. Beverly did her hair, weaving fresh flowers through her curls. Helen helped with her makeup, keeping it natural and simple. Mia sat on the bed, already dressed in her pink flower girl dress, watching everything with wide, excited eyes. You look like a princess, Mia breathed when Tasha finally put on her dress. You think so? The most beautiful princess ever. When it was time, they made their way down to the gardens. Julian's business partner and best friend Victor stood ready to officiate, having gotten ordained online specifically for this occasion. A few close friends and staff members sat in white chairs arranged in rows. It was intimate and perfect. Roberto had outdone himself. The gardens bloomed with roses, tulips, and lilies. The arbor was covered in flowing white fabric and more flowers. Soft music played from speakers hidden among the plants. Mia went first, walking slowly down the aisle and carefully dropping rose petals from her basket. She took her job seriously, making sure each petal was placed just right. When she reached the front, she stood beside her father, beaming with pride. Then Beverly walked down carrying Hope, who looked around with wide, curious eyes. The guests made soft sounds of appreciation at how adorable she looked. Finally, it was Tasha's turn. She walked down the aisle alone because this was her choice, her decision, her future she was walking toward. She didn't need anyone to give her away. She was giving herself freely, with joy and certainty and love. Julian stood at the front, and when he saw her, his face transformed with emotion. Tears ran down his cheeks and he didn't bother wiping them away. Tasha reached him and took his hands. They were both crying now, both overwhelmed by the moment. Victor cleared his throat. We gather here today to celebrate something beautiful. These two people found each other in the darkest of circumstances. They were both broken, both searching for something they'd lost. And in helping each other heal, they found love. He went through the traditional words, but Tasha barely heard them. She was too focused on Julian's face, on the love she saw there, on the future they were promising each other. Do you, Julian Park, take Tasha Monroe to be your wife, to love and cherish in good times and bad, for as long as you both shall live? I do, Julian said firmly. With all my heart. And do you, Tasha Monroe, take Julian Park to be your husband, to love and cherish in good times and bad, for as long as you both shall live? I do, Tasha said, her voice strong and clear. Always. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Julian, you may kiss your bride. Julian pulled Tasha close and kissed her, and the small crowd erupted in applause. Mia jumped up and down, clapping her hands. Hope made a happy gurgling sound from Beverly's arms. When they broke apart, both of them laughing and crying, they turned to face their guests as husband and wife. I present to you, Victor said with a huge smile, Mr. and Mrs. Park. The celebration afterward was joyful and full of laughter. They ate Beverly's incredible food, cut a simple but beautiful cake, and danced in the garden as the sun set. Julian's first dance was with Tasha, holding her close as they swayed to music that spoke of love and commitment. His second dance was with Mia, picking her up and spinning her around until she giggled uncontrollably. Are you happy, Daddy? Mia asked when he finally set her down. Happier than I ever thought I'd be again, Julian said honestly. Me too. Our family is perfect now. As evening fell, Tasha found herself standing at the edge of the garden, holding Hope and watching Julian dance with Mia. Beverly came to stand beside her. You've come a long way, Miss Tasha, Beverly said softly. I have. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to yourself, Beverly corrected. You could have stayed bitter about what happened to you. You could have rejected Mr. Park's help out of pride. But you chose hope instead. You chose to accept kindness when it was offered. That takes courage. Tasha looked down at Hope, who was falling asleep against her shoulder. I'm just glad I get to raise my daughters in a home filled with love. That's all I ever wanted. And now you have it. Julian came over, slightly out of breath from dancing with Mia. May I have this dance with my wife? Always, Tasha said, passing Hope to Beverly. They danced slowly in the fading light, with fireflies starting to appear among the flowers and stars beginning to show in the darkening sky. "Thank you," Julian whispered. "For what?" "For saying yes that first time. For accepting my help. For loving my daughter. For giving us hope. For becoming my wife. For all of it. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. For stopping when everyone else walked past. For giving me a reason to hope again." They kissed gently, sealing promises already made, celebrating love that had grown from desperate need into something beautiful and lasting. This was their happy ending. But really it was just the beginning. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm over the next few months. Tasha officially adopted Mia, and Julian officially adopted Hope, making their family legally bound in every way. The paperwork meant everything and nothing at the same time. They'd been a family long before any judge made it official. Summer arrived warm and bright. Mia finished kindergarten with honors, and they celebrated with a party in the garden. Hope learned to roll over, then to sit up, growing stronger and more alert every day. The house was filled with laughter and the normal chaos of family life. But underneath the joy, Tasha sometimes felt a nagging worry. Things were too perfect. Life had taught her that nothing good lasted forever. She kept waiting for something to go wrong. One evening in late July, while Julian was giving the girls their bath, Tasha's phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made her answer. "Hello? Tasha? It's Marcus." The world seemed to stop. Marcus, Hope's biological father. The man who had abandoned her when she needed him most. "How did you get this number?" Tasha's voice came out cold. "I've been looking for you. I heard you got married. To Julian Park, the billionaire." Marcus's voice carried a tone she didn't like. "That's quite an upgrade from me. What do you want, Marcus?" "I want to see my daughter." Tasha's hand tightened on the phone. "You don't have a daughter. You gave up that right when you walked away. That's not how the law works, Tasha. I'm her biological father. I have rights." Fear crashed over her. "You're not taking her from me." "I don't want to take her. I just want to be part of her life. And maybe, get to know the family she's now part of." The very wealthy family. There it was. The real reason for his call. Money. "You're not getting anything from us," Tasha said firmly. "We'll see what a lawyer says about that. I'll be in touch." He hung up and Tasha stood frozen, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Could Marcus really take Hope? Could he disrupt their family with legal battles? She was still standing there when Julian came downstairs, carrying a pajama-clad Hope. "Everything okay?" he asked, then saw her face. "Tasha, what's wrong?" She told him everything, the words tumbling out in a rush. When she finished, Julian's face had gone hard in a way she'd never seen before. "He's not taking our daughter," Julian said firmly. "But what if he has legal rights? What if—" "Tasha, look at me." Julian waited until she met his eyes. "I have the best lawyers in the country on retainer. Marcus abandoned you when you were homeless and pregnant. He provided no support, financial or emotional. He disappeared for 9 months. No judge in their right mind is going to give him custody or even visitation without proving he's changed and can provide for her. And even then, the adoption paperwork is already complete. He's legally given up his parental rights." "But he said, he's trying to scare you so you'll pay him to go away. It's extortion." Julian pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my lawyer right now. We're going to handle this properly." Over the next week, the situation became clearer. Marcus had indeed found out about Tasha's marriage through social media. He'd seen photos of the wedding, the estate, the obvious wealth. And he'd decided to see if he could get money out of the situation. But Julian's lawyers were thorough. They discovered Marcus had signed away his parental rights when Julian filed the adoption papers. The hospital had tracked him down and sent the paperwork, which he'd signed without hesitation, probably thinking he was washing his hands of any future responsibility. That signature meant he had no legal claim to Hope whatsoever. When confronted with this fact by Julian's lawyers, Marcus threatened to go to the press with a story about how Julian Park had stolen his daughter and bought off his ex-girlfriend. That's when Tasha knew she had to take action. "I want to meet with him," she told Julian. "Face to face." "Tasha, I don't think that's a good idea. I need to do this. I need him to hear from me directly that he has no power over us anymore." Julian didn't like it, but he understood. He insisted on coming with her, along with 2 of his lawyers. They met Marcus at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory with plenty of witnesses. Marcus looked the same, tall, handsome in a careless way, with the kind of charm that had fooled Tasha into thinking he cared about her. But now she saw him clearly. She saw the selfishness in his eyes, the calculating way he assessed Julian's expensive watch and tailored suit. "Tasha," Marcus said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "you look good. Marriage agrees with you. What do you want, Marcus? Real talk, no games." Marcus's smile faded. "I want what's fair. You're living in a mansion, married to one of the richest men in the state. Meanwhile, I'm barely getting by. It's not fair that you got so lucky." "Lucky?" Tasha's voice rose slightly. "You think I was lucky? When you left me, I was homeless, Marcus. Homeless and pregnant. I slept in the rain. I went days without eating. I nearly died. That's not luck. That's survival. I didn't know things got that bad. You didn't know because you didn't care enough to check. You changed your number. You moved without telling me where. You erased me from your life the second I became inconvenient." Marcus had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I was scared. I wasn't ready to be a father. And you think I was ready to be a mother? You think I wasn't scared?" Tasha leaned forward. "The difference is I didn't run. I stayed. I protected our baby even when I had nothing. So don't talk to me about fair." One of Julian's lawyers slid papers across the table. "Mr. Williams, these documents show that you willingly signed away your parental rights. You have no legal claim to the child. Any attempt to harass this family will result in a restraining order and possible charges of extortion." Marcus looked at the papers and reality seemed to sink in. He couldn't win this. He had no leverage. "I could go to the press," he said weakly. "Tell them how you took my daughter." "You could try," Julian said, speaking for the first time. His voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. "But my lawyers will bury you in lawsuits. And the truth will come out, that you're a man who abandoned his pregnant girlfriend, left her homeless, and then tried to extort money from her after she rebuilt her life. How do you think that will play in the press?" Marcus slumped in his chair, defeated. Tasha felt nothing for him. No anger, no regret, not even pity. He was just a person she used to know who had made choices that revealed his character. "I'm going to say this once," Tasha said clearly. "Hope is not your daughter. You gave up that title when you walked away. She has a father now. A real father who shows up and loves her and will protect her with everything he has. You are nothing to us. Stay away from my family." She stood up and Julian stood with her. They walked out of the coffee shop together, leaving Marcus sitting alone at the table. Outside, Tasha took a deep breath of fresh air. She felt lighter somehow, like she'd finally closed a chapter that had been hanging open. "You okay?" Julian asked. "I'm perfect. He has no power over me anymore. Over us. He's just a ghost from a past I've moved beyond." Julian pulled her into his arms right there on the sidewalk. "I'm so proud of you. You were strong and clear and you didn't let him manipulate you." "I learned from the best," Tasha said, smiling up at him. "You taught me that it's okay to stand up for yourself. That having money and power doesn't make you better than others, but it can be used to protect the people you love." They never heard from Marcus again. He faded back into whatever life he was living, and the Park family moved forward without looking back. That night, Tasha stood in the nursery watching Hope sleep. The baby was 6 months old now, growing so fast it made Tasha's heart ache. She had Julian's last name, a family who adored her, and a future full of possibilities. "Thank you for protecting us," Tasha whispered into the quiet room. "Thank you for being the father she deserves." Arms wrapped around her from behind, and Julian rested his chin on her shoulder. "Always. I'll always protect you both. All three of you." Mia appeared in the doorway in her pajamas. "Can't sleep?" "Come here, sweetheart," Tasha said, and Mia joined them by the crib. They stood there as a family, Julian, Tasha, Mia, and sleeping Hope. For people who had found each other through pain and loss and need, and had built something beautiful together. "Are you sad about Marcus?" Mia asked. She knew some of what had happened, explained in age-appropriate terms. "No," Tasha said honestly. "I'm grateful. Because if things had worked out with him, I wouldn't have you. I wouldn't have your dad. I wouldn't have this family. Sometimes the worst things lead to the best things." "Like how Mommy dying led to you coming here?" Mia asked. It was a heavy question for a 6-year-old, but Mia had always been wise beyond her years. "In a way, yes," Julian said carefully. "I don't think your first Mommy dying was good. That was sad and hard. But maybe her love for us was so strong that she helped bring Tasha to us. So we could all heal together." Mia thought about this, then nodded. "I think Mommy would like Tasha. I think she'd be glad we're happy again." "I think so too," Julian said, his voice rough with emotion. They stood together in the quiet nursery, a family forged through loss and hope and the courage to love again. Whatever challenges came next, they would face them together. And that made all the difference. 6 months later, on a crisp January morning, Tasha woke to the sound of Hope babbling in her crib and Mia singing in the hallway. She smiled, stretching in the warm bed, and reached over to find Julian already awake, watching her. "Good morning, Mrs. Park," he said, kissing her forehead. "Good morning, Mr. Park." It had been over a year since that cold night when Julian found her collapsed outside his hotel. A year of transformation, healing, and building something beautiful from broken pieces. They got up and started the day together, the familiar rhythm of family life that Tasha never took for granted. Julian made coffee while Tasha nursed Hope. Mia came downstairs already dressed for the day, excited because it was Saturday and Roberto had promised to teach her about planting spring bulbs. "Can Hope come outside too?" Mia asked. "I want to show her the garden." "If we bundle her up warm enough," Tasha agreed. After breakfast they all went outside. The gardens were dormant for winter, but still beautiful in their own way. Roberto was already there, preparing the soil for spring planting. "Miss Mia," he called out with a warm smile. "Ready to learn about tulips?" Mia ran to him eagerly, and Roberto patiently showed her how to prepare the ground and place the bulbs. Julian held Hope, pointing out birds and trees, talking to her in a gentle voice even though she was too young to understand. Tasha stood back and watched her family, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. This was everything she dreamed of during those dark days on the street. Safety, love, belonging, purpose. "You look happy," Beverly said, coming out with a tray of hot chocolate for everyone. "I am. So completely happy. You deserve it, honey. You and Mr. Park both. You've built something special here." That afternoon, Julian's sister Helen came by with her husband and their 2 kids. The children played together in the playroom while the adults gathered in the living room, talking and laughing. This was family in the truest sense. Not just blood relations but people who chose to love and support each other. Helen pulled Tasha aside at one point. "I want to thank you," she said quietly. "When Caroline died, I was so worried about Julian and Mia. I didn't know if they'd ever recover. But you brought them back to life. You gave them hope again." "They did the same for me," Tasha said. "We saved each other." That evening, after everyone had gone home and both girls were asleep, Julian asked Tasha to join him in his study. She found him at his desk with papers spread out in front of him. "Everything okay?" she asked. "More than okay. Come look at this." She came around the desk and he showed her the documents. They were trust fund papers, revised and updated. "When Hope was born, I set up trust funds for both girls," Julian explained. "But I've been thinking about expanding that. I want to create a foundation. The Caroline and Hope Foundation. It will provide housing assistance, medical care, and job training for homeless pregnant women. Everything you needed when you were on the streets." Tasha's eyes filled with tears. "Julian, that's beautiful. You'll run it if you want. Or we can hire someone and you can be on the board. Whatever you're comfortable with. But I want to make sure that what happened to you doesn't happen to other women. I want to help." "We'll help," Tasha corrected. "Together." They kissed, sealing this new commitment to help others the way Julian had once helped Tasha. It felt right, like the natural evolution of their story. Over the next few months, they worked on establishing the foundation. They found a building downtown to convert into transitional housing. They hired staff, including a wonderful director named Patricia who had once been homeless herself and understood exactly what these women needed. On the day of the grand opening, Tasha stood at the podium to give a speech. She looked out at the crowd. Julian holding Hope, Mia sitting in the front row with Beverly and Roberto, Helen and her family, journalists and city officials and people who had supported the foundation. "A little over a year ago, I was homeless," Tasha began, and saw surprise ripple through parts of the crowd who didn't know her story. "I was 7 months pregnant, alone, and I'd given up hope. I sat outside the Park Grand Hotel in freezing rain, and I watched dozens of people walk past me without stopping. Without seeing me. I'd become invisible." She paused, meeting Julian's eyes. But one man did stop. Julian Park didn't just call an ambulance. He carried me inside himself. He made sure I got medical care. And then he offered me something I desperately needed. A home. Not just shelter, but a real home with love and family and purpose. Tasha looked down at her notes, then decided to speak from her heart instead. "I'm not here to shame anyone who walked past me that night. I understand. We live in a world where we're taught to look away from poverty because it's uncomfortable. We're taught that helping is someone else's job. But I'm here to tell you that it only takes one person stopping, one person caring to change everything. She gestured to the building behind her. This foundation exists because Julian Park believed that every person deserves dignity, safety, and a chance to rebuild. It exists because he showed me that accepting help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. And now we're extending that same help to other women who need it. The speech continued, outlining the services they provide: safe housing, prenatal care, job training, childcare, mental health support. Everything designed to help women move from crisis to stability. When she finished, the crowd erupted in applause. Julian came up to the podium, still holding hope, and kissed Tasha's cheek. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. Later, during the tour of the facility, a young woman approached Tasha timidly. She was clearly pregnant, maybe 6 months along, with fear and hope warring in her eyes. "Excuse me, Mrs. Park? I was wondering if I could apply to stay here. I lost my job last month and I'm about to lose my apartment. I don't know what else to do." Tasha took the woman's hands in hers. "What's your name?" "Diana. Diana Foster." "Diana, you're exactly who we built this place for. Yes, you can apply. Actually, let me introduce you to Patricia right now. She'll get you started with the intake process." As she watched Patricia lead Diana away, Tasha felt Julian's arm around her waist. "That's going to be you, isn't it?" he said. "Stopping on the street, bringing people inside, making sure they're cared for." "Someone did it for me," Tasha said simply. "Now it's my turn to pass it forward." That night, back at home, Tasha sat in the nursery with 1-year-old Hope on her lap, reading a bedtime story. Mia sat beside them, following along with the words she was learning to read in 1st grade. Julian appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame, just watching. Tasha looked up and smiled at him. "Come join us," she said. He sat down on the floor with them and they finished the story together as a family. When it was time for bed, they tucked Hope into her crib and walked Mia to her room. "Tasha?" Mia said as Tasha was about to turn off the light. "Do you remember that day when you first came here and I asked you to promise you wouldn't leave?" "I remember. Thank you for keeping that promise. Thank you for staying." Tasha's throat tightened with emotion. "Thank you for letting me stay. For letting me be your mom. You're the best mom ever. Well, second best. Mommy Caroline was the first best. But you're tied for first," Mia said with 6-year-old logic that somehow made perfect sense. "I'll take tied for first," Tasha said, laughing through tears. After Mia was asleep, Tasha and Julian stood in the hallway together. Through Mia's open door, they could see her sleeping peacefully. Down the hall, Hope slept in her crib, one tiny fist curled near her face. "Do you ever think about how different everything could have been?" Tasha asked quietly. "If you had walked past me that night? If I'd refused your help?" "All the time," Julian admitted. "But I'm glad we didn't make those choices. I'm glad I stopped. I'm glad you said yes. I'm glad we found each other." "Me too." They walked to their bedroom hand in hand. As they got ready for bed, moving in the comfortable rhythm of a couple who knew each other well, Tasha thought about the journey that brought them here. She thought about loss and grief and hitting rock bottom. She thought about kindness shown when it mattered most. She thought about learning to accept help without shame. She thought about two broken people choosing to heal together. She thought about becoming a family, piece by piece, day by day. And she thought about the future stretching ahead of them, full of normal days and extraordinary love. As she climbed into bed beside her husband, Tasha felt peace settle over her like a warm blanket. This was home. These were her people. This was the life she'd built from nothing, with help from someone who cared enough to stop. "I love you," she whispered to Julian as he pulled her close. "I love you too. Always." Outside, snow began to fall softly, covering the estate in white. Inside, the Park family slept peacefully, safe and warm and complete. Sometimes the greatest love stories don't start with romance. They start with one person seeing another person's humanity when everyone else looks away. They start with kindness offered freely, without strings or expectations. They start with the courage to accept help when pride says to refuse it. Tasha Monroe came to the Park household with nothing but hope for her unborn child. She found a home, a family, and love beyond anything she'd imagined. Julian Park thought he was just helping someone in need. He found healing, joy, and a second chance at the happiness he thought he'd lost forever. Mia Park was drowning in grief and silence. She found a mother figure who kept her promises and loved her unconditionally. Together, they proved that families aren't always born. Sometimes they're built, one choice at a time, one day at a time, with love as the foundation and hope as the blueprint. The Caroline and Hope Foundation went on to help hundreds of women over the years. Each one walked through those doors desperate and afraid, and walked out with dignity restored and futures rebuilt. Because one man chose to stop on a cold rainy night and help someone everyone else ignored. And every single time Tasha welcomed a new woman into the foundation, she remembered what it felt like to be invisible, to be overlooked, to be desperate for someone to care. She remembered Julian's kindness and she passed it forward, creating ripples of hope that spread far beyond what she ever imagined. This is the power of choosing kindness. Of seeing people instead of looking past them. Of offering help without judgment. Of accepting help without shame. Sometimes all it takes to change everything is one person willing to stop. One person willing to help. One person willing to love. And that's how families are built. That's how lives are changed. That's how miracles happen. One act of kindness at a time.